Do you know who you are? Do you feel lost in a crowd? Then get found.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning in to this global broadcast. I welcome you to visit with me for the next 28 minutes and to come to my website. Each year I share a theme for your consideration and reflection. This year's theme is Get Found. I'll be right back.
And now, with answers to life's greatest questions, here's international speaker, author, and spiritual philosopher, Dr. Ramesh Richard.
With New Year celebrations just around the corner, a shepherd was tending his sheep in remote Indonesia. A Japanese SUV came shrieking to a stop in a cloud of smoke and dust. A young man shouted out to the shepherd and said, "Hey, I want to make a deal with you." The young man was clad in his Italian suit, his designer tie, his American sunglasses, his British shoes, his Swiss watch, all made, of course, in southern China, and said, "If I were to tell you how many sheep you have, would you give me one of those?" The shepherd looked at his sheep, peacefully grazing, and said, "Sure, you can have one." Immediately, the young man went into high-tech action, got his computer out, hooked it up to his internet-enabled phone. He scanned a NASA page with a global positioning system, came out with databases and a 150-page report all printed out in his miniaturized printer with the final answer. He gave it to the shepherd and said, "You have 1,536 sheep." The shepherd smiled and said, "Agreed, you can have one of my sheep as your own." The shepherd was watching the young urban professional grappling a sheep, putting it into his SUV. And then he made a counteroffer. He said to the young man, "If I were to tell you what your profession is, can I have my sheep back?" The young man thought for a moment and said, "Why not?" "Well," the shepherd said, "you are a business consultant, are you?" The young man was surprised. "That's a good guess." And the shepherd said, "That was not a guess. You're a consultant because you came here when I didn't call for you. Second, you gave me an answer to a question for which I already had the solution. And third, you don't know anything about my sheep herding business because you just took my dog." Today I want to speak to you not as a business consultant, but as a counselor for life. I want to speak to you as a fellow journeyman, not a guide or a director. I want to speak to you alone. I don't want you to worry about who else is watching this program. I don't want you to think about what you have or do not have. I don't want you to think about what you've experienced and have not experienced. I speak to you alone. I want to begin with the signs of lostness that people experience all over the world, regardless of race or religion or culture or country or civilization. Here are a few signs of lostness that I've discovered. The first one is what I call restlessness, where there's no peace inside your soul. There's an upheaval going on as you try to process life. You may know the great story by Edgar Allan Poe in his Telltale Heart, where a young man kills an older man and buries him under his living room. Soon he hears the thump-thump, the bump-bump of a heartbeat. Realizing that the older man may not be dead, he ponders the question. Soon he hears a knock on his front door, and two policemen appear. The young man knows that the policemen are after him, invites them in, seats them in his living room, and he hears the thump-thump, the bump-bump of the heart, the old man's heart, presumably. The policemen don't say a word. They just keep listening to what he has to say. And the young man, in a state of fury and anger, gets up and confesses, indeed, that he had killed the older man. The policemen are shocked about this murder confession. For the young man, all that he had heard was the bump-bump, the thump-thump of his own heartbeat. Is your heart pumping? Is it going bump-bump? That is a sign of restlessness. The baggage from the past shows you that you're guilty. There is no peace inside your heart.